French Union 1946–1958. The French Union French Union Française was a political entity created by the French Fourth Republic to replace the old French colonial empire system, colloquially known as the French Empire Empire française. It was the formal end of the indigenous indigène status of French subjects in colonial areas. Composition. The French Union had 5 components: metropolitan France, which included French Algeria; old colonies, notably those of the French West Indies in the Caribbean that became overseas departments in 1946, Guadeloupe; French Guiana, Martinique, Reunion; new colonies, renamed overseas territories, Ivory Coast, Dahomey, Guinea, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal; French Sudan, Upper Volta, Congo, Gabon, Ubangi, Shari, Chad, Comoros; French India, Madagascar, New Caledonia, French Polynesia, St. Pierre and Miquelon, French Somaliland; associated states, protectorates of French Indochina. It had been expected that other protectorates would become part of the French Union, but the rulers of French Morocco and French Tunisia refused to become members and never belonged. United Nations Trust territories, such as French Cameroons and French Togoland, successors of the League of Nations mandates. History. The French Union was established by the French Constitution of 27 October 1946, Fourth Republic. Under it, it was said that there were no French colonies, but that metropolitan France, the overseas departments, and the overseas territories combined to create a single French Union, or just one France. The goal of this union was assimilation of the overseas territories into a greater France, inhabited by French citizens and blessed by French culture. Whereas the British colonial system had local colonial governments which would eventually evolve into separate national governments, France wanted to create a single government under a single French state. This French Union had a president, a high council, and an assembly. The president was the president of the Republic. The Assembly of the Union had membership from the Council of the Republic, from the National Assembly, and from regional assemblies of the overseas territories and departments, but ultimately had no power. The High Council ultimately met only 3 times, first in 1951. The Assembly was the only actually functioning institution that could manage legislation within the overseas territories. In reality, the colonial areas had representation, but all power remained in the French Parliament and thus was centralized. The colonies had local assemblies, but these had only limited local power. Instead, various natives of the overseas territories in metropolitan France grew into a group of elites, known as évolus. On 31 January 1956, in response to the Algerian War, the system changed, abandoning assimilation in favor of autonomy, allowing territories to develop their own local government and to eventually gain their independence. This would not succeed, however, and in 1958 the French Union was replaced by the French Community by Charles de Gaulle's Fifth Republic, wherein France was now a federation of states with their own self-government. Contemporary views on the French Union. Withdrawals from the French Union. Cambodia withdrew on 25 September 1955. South Vietnam withdrew on 9 December 1955. Laos withdrew on 11 May 1957 by amending its constitution. Youth Council. The Youth Council of the French Union French, Conseil de la Jeunesse de l'Union Française, abbreviated CJUF, was a coordinating body of youth organizations in the French Union. CJUF was founded in 1950. The organization had its headquarters in Paris and held annual congresses. Aftermath of the French Union and the French Community. In 1958, the French Fourth Republic was replaced by a new Fifth Republic, characterized by a stronger presidential system, led by President Charles de Gaulle. A constitutional referendum was held on 28 September 1958 in order to replace the French Union. As part of a wider referendum across the French Union and France itself on whether to adopt the new French constitution, if accepted, colonies would become part of the new French community. If rejected, the territory would be granted independence. All major political parties in each respective country, apart from two in Guinea and Niger, supported a yes vote in the 1958 constitutional referendum, seeking a looser form of autonomy rather than the system of close relations dominated by French influence. The leading political activists in Guinea were opposed to the new French community. The referendum proposal was overwhelmingly approved by upward of 90% of the population in each respective territory. Even in Niger, where the main organized political force opposed the replacing of the French Union with the community, the new constitution was supported by a clear majority. However, the results in Guinea showed that more than 95% of voters voted against the constitution, with a turnout of 85.5%. In response to the result in Guinea, French officials destroyed furniture, light bulbs, and windows. Any crockery, medical equipment, or documents that could not be carried were also destroyed, and over 3,000 French civil servants and army health officials left the country. This only reinforced anti-colonial sentiment inside of Guinea, and Tour would continue to urge other African nations to declare independence. The former West and Central African colonies, after the passage of the referendum, formed a transitionary organization in 1959 called the Union of Central African Republics, replacing the bloc of French Equatorial Africa that existed as a subsection of the French Union and became part of the new French community. Within metropolitan France itself, most political parties supported the proposed changes to the constitution, most significantly those of Ascendant Charles de Gaulle as well as the majority of the SFIO. Notable opposing forces were the French Communist Party, as well as a smaller section of socialists that included the future president of France, François Mitterrand. Opposition to the changes were split between those who wanted complete independence for the African former colonies, mainly those on the French left, and then those who opposed any change to the existing system of the French Union at all, mostly positioned on the right. De Gaulle successfully argued that his position on creating a French community, as opposed to the continuance of the French Union, as a sensible and moderate compromise. However, the new French community did not last long, with most African states leaving the organization by 1962, preferring complete independence. The French community was finally abolished in the 1990s. Its replacement, the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, is based on promotion of the French language.